Jazz Show. My guests today are three of my favorite pianos in and outside of New York City. Steve Ash is a New York City resident who often works with me. In fact, Steve and I were supposed to be at Mesro Jazz Club this Sunday, but that's been canceled due to complications. And Nial Djuliarso, currently living in Jakarta. And Nial was a former member of my quintet. They will be present. So I will put them on the screen now. And hey, gentlemen, how are you?
Hi, Richie. Doing good.
Hi, Facebook world. Yes. Well, my first question to you cats is, how come I am your favorite trumpet player in the whole wide world? Just kidding. My first question, Steve, and then Nial, if you could answer. Now that we're in a lockdown with this coronavirus, I was wondering, has your practice routine changed in any way, Steve?
Not a lot, but I am trying to practice a little more now. And of course, there's more time to practice because I'm not commuting to go to gigs. So yeah, I would say I'm practicing more. And there's not much else to do. So
the same type of practice, or is it less intensive or more intensive?
I would say it's similar to what I was doing. Lately, I've been trying to motivate myself to put more videos of me playing solo piano on Facebook. So that's been a bit of a motivator to get me to practice a little more, to try to get some polished products online, videos.
Yeah. Well, your videos have been really great. I love the
Thank you.
Joplin stuff and the classical stuff, and I'm a huge fan. Nial, how has your practicing or routine changed, if at all?
Yeah, I haven't been practicing as much. But I've been listening to music every day because I have to do the house chores now. Because we.
So when you do the house chores, does your wife practice piano?
No, she has to work. She luckily she can work from the internet, so she still works her regular schedule. So this pandemic hasn't really changed her work. Yeah.
Well, I miss you and Tia very much because Tia was one of my on-two salsa dancers and I'm looking forward to studying again. I don't know how that's going to happen if we're going to be in masks and gloves dancing, and the same thing with Tai Chi. So this has kind of put a cramp into what we're going to do. I also donate my time to putting people in kayaks, and you have to pull them out and put them in, and there's a lot of action there. So I figure eventually that our restaurants, like I love to go to Arturo's and sit in. Steve, you work at Arturo's, and I figured that what they're going to do, I've been hearing, is that they get half the number of tables, and the waitresses and waiters may even be in masks. And I think that's how we're going to reopen, hopefully, in the fall. And you know, it won't freak me out. I'm just going to go and hang and sit in and eat some veal parm. You know, so.
Oh, great. Yeah, can't wait to be back there.
Yeah,
I haven't heard about reduced number of tables, but hey, whatever it takes, right?
Well, you know, I was just reading on someone else's site that some of the restaurants are doing that currently. If they do reopen, that they have half the number of tables, and I could see Small Jazz Club and Mesro. You can't have people that close together, but they will reopen. As you guys, or at least Steve probably knows, Billy Joel was nice enough to donate $25,000 towards Mesro and Smalls, which thank you, Billy Joel. And Steve just posted something about, I think it's called the Artist Relief Project, which is helping jazz musicians. And also there's the Louis Armstrong Foundation, ladies and gentlemen, and artists, and their deadline is Monday. So everybody go to those links and check them out and thank Billy Joel personally if you know him, and not personally if you don't know him. Just say hi on his Facebook page, if he has one even. So I was wondering, Nial, when you came to New York, geez, I was so happy to meet you. Not only was Nial a wonderful piano player, but he was a good friend of mine, and I did some comedic videos. For instance, he filmed me as I walked around New York. For instance, I actually hired a bum. I shouldn't call him a bum, but the guy had a cup in his hand with money, and I was in like a full suit, like 3-piece suit, and I went by and took money out of his cup, for myself, and Nial's laughing out loud, so I had to cut out all the laughter, but Nial really helped me out with that. And Nial, what prompted you? Was it this whole school thing to come here, or just being in New York around such great musicians?
Yeah, both. I mean, when I got into jazz, I always read about New York and that all the greats were living in New York. So I thought one day I have to visit this place. But I got into Juilliard at the time. So then that's what prompted the move in 2004. And
did you did part of your time, it sounds like prison, it's not really, you did part of your time at Juilliard, and did you finish up someplace else?
Yeah, I was at Berklee College of Music before that in Boston.
We lost my man Steve. I told him what he asked, how to get back to live, and I do have a couple questions for him. If he has trouble, ladies and gentlemen, I will call him on the phone and rehook this up. But my aim here is to get a better visual and sound than CNN, and so far I've been having less problems than they have. So I'm very... Oh, Steve Ash wants to join your broadcast. All righty. Hey, Steve. Left us for just a minute.
Yeah, you know why? Because I couldn't see or hear Nial. Now I can see you both.
Okay. Well, if you can't see and hear me, it's not a problem, because I have nothing interesting to say, and I'm not really a visual. Okay. I'm more of a sonic thing. But
yes.
But thank you for doing that. That's
sure.
Steve we're still fooling around with this app. It's called Be Live, and Steve found something on the iPad, which is an app you could download called Be Live, which I didn't know about. And I'm a super computer geek, so I'm still learning. Now, Steve, the same question, to have such marvelous piano players here and nice people, because formerly I used to work with great musicians 20 years ago, but they'd come into Smalls 10 minutes late with a beer in their hand. And I'm, now I get there, the musicians are there, and they're asking me would I like a beer. So
yeah, now you're late.
Yes, now I'm late. Well, 5 minutes early was always considered late on Buddy's bus, but I try to get there 15 minutes before, but I do carry a lot of music. So yes, it could be considered late unless I'm there half an hour early. Thanks for outing me, Steve.
Yeah.
And Steve,
well, when you're the leader, you can do that,
And Steve, what brought you to New York, by the way?
I would have to say a girl.
And that being?
And music.
Who is the girl I met?
Well, I don't know if I want to divulge that.
It's not your current wife, then.
Right. I could tell you, but then I'd have to.
Then I'd have to. Yeah. Then you'd have to shoot me and
right.
kill me. Okay.
I'll tell you later, in private.
Yeah, there are.
No, actually, music brought me to New York. I came here right after I finished college, which was almost exactly 40 years ago. Can you believe that? The May of 1980. Friends of mine from college in Indiana, where I went, were sharing a house in Long Island, and I joined them right after college. And a big part of my motivation for coming to New York was to continue seeing my girlfriend at the time, who was living in this area. So, but my rent was $100 a month.
Nice.
In 1980, there were 5 of us musicians sharing a house in West Hempstead, Long Island. It was great.
Yeah, $100.
Fantastic.
Wow,
yeah.
That's how much I'd pay for buying bread and macaroni.
At Whole Foods, yeah.
Yeah, so I have 33 days. This is a new thing with Be Live. We have a widget, and we think it's 33 days. If anybody on Facebook thinks it's any different for New York quarantine, I will check shortly. piano is very hard to play. To me, it's like studying Spanish. Like I study really hard for 6 months and I think I'm getting someplace, and then I forget about it for 8 months, and then I have to come back and relearn everything I knew. So one time I had a piano player who wanted, to learn some of the stuff that I have, some of the pentatonic stuff that I've learned and printed about. And he said, Richie, can I come over? And I said, yeah, but every time I get together with a piano player, I'm super confused. They come over and they play for me, and an hour goes by and I've learned like nothing. It's like they're performing. And he said, if I do that, you could punch me in the face, which was a really nice offer. So an hour went by and I punched him in the face. No, actually, I did not do that. But I swear, an hour went by and he played and he performed and it was beautiful. But I says, look, I have PDFs printed out for you, but I learned nothing. So I was wondering what your teaching techniques are, Steve, and then Nial.
Well, I always try to gear my teaching towards my student. So I lost you. Can you hear me?
I think this is you on focus. He's still there, I think.
Can you hear me? No.
Sorry, I went away to get some coffee there. Okay, and Nial, what are your teaching techniques like?
Yeah, it's the same. I try to gear it towards my students if they're a beginner or more experienced. But we try to delve into songs right away. I think so.
Songs are good.
Yeah, so they don't get bored.
That's nice. Because music is a communal thing. And I try to tell people, look, you could practice all you want inside of your home, but if you don't play with other people, if you could find someone on your level and play, that's, what we're really about. That's really putting it out there in a beautiful way. Now, both of you said you gear your teaching towards your students. That's a very good rule. I never gear my teaching towards myself. So so thank you for that insight. And teaching is fun, and I enjoy it almost as much as playing. I was very fortunate in a way, because I'm so happy with computer geeking and writing my books and making videos and stuff, that this virus didn't affect me like it did some people with 3 gigs a day. It kind of freaked them out, I think. And my rent is kind of paid because I get Social Security and pension. So I'm confessing my age now, which is cool. But a friend of mine who's like 84 years old, he told me 4 days ago, he says, man, I'm getting restless. And just about the same time it hit me, that, wow, I'm starting to freak out now. And that's like, people were freaking out right away, I think. By the way, I've been going to stores, and there've been distancing, which is kind of cool. I like that. So I went to Esposito's to pick up some ham shanks for my split pea soup, and couldn't get anything there. And Koreatown and where else did I go? Oh yeah. So all the stores are kind of messed up in that way. What's the shopping like in Jakarta for you, Nial? Is it any places closed? Because I'm a little worried that we're just a step away from shops closing down completely and food lines. Sometimes I think, what would happen if Food Emporium and a couple other places closed? What's it like in Jakarta now?
Yeah, one of the places that I go to, they have shorter hours.
Uh-huh.
But they're still open, and you can get all the same thing. But they turn the it's inside a shopping mall, and they turn the AC off on some of the other areas, so it's a little bit hot or hotter there now. but and yeah, not many people go to the mall because yeah, only the grocery stores are open, and the shops on that floor. They're the first, like if the store is on the basement, then the first floor and the second floor would be closed. So you cannot do much at the mall.
Mm-hmm. And Jakarta is one of the biggest cities in Indonesia, or the biggest. It's the capital. Or what's the status of Jakarta?
Grocery stores. Yeah, it's the capital, and it's very densely populated. I think it's 7 million. When the traffic jam everywhere, but because of this corona, you hardly see any cars now, and yeah, it's like it's amazing. I mean, yeah, nobody's really not a lot of people are on the streets like it was before.
Oh, probably Steve had trouble hearing you, so I may have him call you on the phone next time, and see, or you could call him and see if you could speak to each other. I did that with Joe Magnarelli and Greg Gisberg, but it works best if you have headphones or something. But we'll see. Steve will be back in a minute, and we'll see if he could hear us. And what is the jazz club situation in Jakarta? Are there, when there's not a coronavirus situation, are there places to play and jam?
Yeah, for this kind of jazz, the straight ahead or mainstream, not so many places. Maybe hotels, like, and most of the bands would have vocalists. Yeah, which are fine, but it's different than instrumental jazz.
I love working with vocalists, by the way. I got to work with Sinatra for 5 years, and Bennett, and James Taylor was a big deal to me. Steve, could you hear everybody now?
Now I can, yes.
Thanks for doing that. You're really good at that and computer literate, which I really appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have to walk you through it. Steve, I'm going to ask you something, and I'm going to see if we're live on Facebook. We are. And if there's any questions towards you two cats in a minute. But Steve, you worked with Bruce Harris, is that right?
Sure.
And what was it like touring? And tell me where you went. And I'm going to check.
It was fantastic. One of the most fun gigs ever for me. We spent 4 weeks in China 2 years ago. Oh, I lost you again.
Oh, that was me. That was my bad. Hold on in a minute. But Steve, you worked with... I did something bad. I clicked on Be Live and tried to go to Facebook. I actually have another tab open, which is what I should have done. So forgive me. That was my fault. And here comes Steve, I hope. Yay. 3, 2, 1. Boom.
Okay.
Forgive me. I am so sorry.
Back.
I pushed the wrong button. The red one.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah, the red one that said "Do not push," and there's
Oh,
a nuclear bomb on its way to wherever it's supposed to go. So,
okay,
Steve, sorry, and I love touring, and I've never been to Japan. I practice Tai Chi, so I'd love to go. But go ahead, and I'm going to check the Facebook feed, by the way. So.
Okay. Yeah, so I went to Shanghai, China.
No, you may still be there.
You're good, Steve. I just put you on, Steve. I just put you on solo picture.
Okay,
Steve, sorry, and I love touring, and I've never been to Japan. I practice Tai Chi, so I'd love to go. But go ahead. Now I'm getting the Facebook Live thing. Huh. See if there's any questions for us. Jeffrey! Thank you, Jerry Weldon. All right, let me see if I could get audio only, it says. Okay, great. All right, let me see if I could get my picture back. And now my man Steve will be back, and I won't try to do that. I went to Facebook Live and I started to hear them, and it probably cut Steve off. So I'll quit fiddling with the dials, I think. Nial, is there any chance you'll be coming back to New York?
Yeah, except I don't know when yet. But yeah, would be nice to see you all again.
Yeah,
but,
for like a couple weeks or for an extended stay.
Maybe just a short stay. I was I guess this Fabian Marie, right?
Oh yeah, very good. Trumpet player that works with my baritone player with Frank Basili, or Frank works with him.
Yeah, I guess he's been going back and forth from France to New York for years now.
Yeah.
So, if I can do some of that, maybe
that would be so cool. And Steve, I'm sorry, this is the third time I did something bad, and forgive me, I'll hire you on another gig very shortly after we
Did you push that red button again?
No, I went to the Facebook tab and something happened. But if I push a button and just solo you, don't let that freak you out. It'll look like this. So that doesn't mean you lost our vision.
I think you did it again.
No. Did I cut your sound off? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Steve? Can you hear me? Okay. I think I know what I can't.
Richie, are you there?
I'm there, but you can't hear me, so you're going to have to blink off again. Let me call him. Forgive me, folks. It is live.
Hey, your friend said don't put Steve on solo.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear us, Steve? Okay.
Hey, Richie.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
What's okay, up? Let's keep it like this. And can you hear Nial?
I'm not sure. Yes, I hear him on the app.
Okay, so bring your phone over to your chair and let's see if this works. So I could go and look. That way I could look at the Facebook.
I don't know what's going on with the picture.
Well,
Okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, 1 sec.
Jerry Weldon's watching.
Yes, Weldon's there. How did you know?
Okay, now I can hear you.
I see the comments.
Okay, Steve, I'm going to probably ask you because of the echo is to disconnect and come back. And then I'll have a couple questions for you. My bad.
Okay.
Jeffrey. All right, now I'm actually seeing the comments on the side, which I didn't know Be Live could do this. So that means I could close the Facebook tab with any luck. And Jerry Weldon says hello. Luca Pacini says, Steve, keep talking. We can hear you. Richie, don't put Steve on solo. Yes, you are absolutely right. My friend Amanda, who I practiced karate with for about 8 years, and I don't tell people that, so nobody wants to fight with me, says hi and sends me a heart. Technical difficulties, Judy Wessler, Anthony Chiaka, we can, Barry Gordon, Echo, Jerry, they are about to make pizza. Okay, so this is kind of cool. I'm starting to see comments of my friends and frenemies and enemies and in-laws and outlaws. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to show Steve again. I'm going to put you back on the screen, and this time I will not solo you because every time I solo you, yes, I won't touch anything. And this is kind of cool. I've never had this before. I'm actually getting the public comments on the right side of the screen. So I closed the Facebook tab. So this is kind of cool. Now it's
don't
not
touch
CNN.
your face.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about going out now. I'm just washing my hands way too much. For instance, before I go to the store, I make sure I'm on E. So I have to go to the bathroom and I wash my hands. And then I get to the store and then I come back up here and then I wash my hands and I'm singing happy birthday to myself because that's about 20 seconds if you put 2 fermatas in there. And it's really cool because I'm singing happy birthday to myself 2 times, so it's my birthday and I'm really happy. And then I finish that and I have to go to the bathroom again. So then I have to wash my hands a 3rd time. So my hands have never been cleaner, which is kind of cool, but it's getting very tiring. Now, Steve, this time I promise I won't cut you off, but you were talking about a wonderful trumpet player, Bruce Harrison, going to China and other places. And I've never been to China, but could you expound upon that? And I promise not to cut you off this time.
Okay, we'll give it another try. So 2 years ago, Bruce, who's a fantastic trumpet player, got a gig in Shanghai, China. It was at Dizzy's in Shanghai, and he had a fantastic quintet. We spent 4 weeks playing at the same club, 6 nights a week. It was one of the greatest gigs I've ever had. I would love to do it again sometime. Although I don't think we're quite ready to go back to China too soon.
No.
But, maybe in a year or two. And then after that, we had a 1-week gig in Mexico also, which was great. I had never been to Mexico before. I loved it. And great experiences.
I stepped away for a minute. Shanghai, China, any other places in China did you mention?
No, we were just in the one place, 6 nights a week.
Wow.
Dizzy's Club, Shanghai.
Nice. That is so cool.
Yeah.
I've never been to China. I've been to Japan 5 times and Korea once and Europe, of course, with Buddy Rich and Italy with my own band. But one of my dreams is to go, almost every place in the world. China. I'd like to go to Africa. I love Cuban music. I'd like to do that also. So, Steve, is there any special? We talked about practicing. I just want to delve into that a little more because one of the things I have the hardest time with the piano is you're using 10 fingers, and I use 3. So it's hard.
You only have 3 fingers?
Well, for the trumpet. I only have eyes for you and 3 fingers for the trumpet. But these, when I comp, it's kind of like I'm comping bang, bang, offbeats, which is nice. But piano players do all this beautiful moving around stuff. And what I'd like to do someday is actually record, pay someone, a pianist like Steve, for instance, and record him playing the blues and maybe another song, a ballad or a standard, and transcribe what he did and then have him explain it. And I'm getting close to that because of my Patreon page and other things, where I'll be able to do projects like that, where I'm not just working with myself, but, where the explanation could be lucid. And when you are playing in a trio, what are the most important things to you in a trio, Steve? Is it the people you're with or the feeling or the audience or combination?
Yeah, they're all very important things. Are you talking about a piano trio with bass and drums?
For instance, yes.
Yeah, well, when it's a trio situation, as the pianist, you're really in charge. You got to play the melody, the arrangement, the intros, the endings, as well as soloing and comping for the bass solo or drum solo. But generally, the pianist is playing in a group, quartet or quintet. And in that setting, I would say comping is probably the most important thing. That's our primary role as pianists, is to comp. I mean, we also get to solo, but really comping is the main thing. Piano trio is a different animal where you have to do everything as the pianist.
Well, the whole comping thing is I'm learning there's different types of comping. For instance, you could be playing shell chords with the left hand, which basically means 1 and 7 or 1 and 3 or something, and playing the melody with the right. And that gives you a lot of real estate with the right hand. Or sometimes you could play chording with the left hand, and that closes up some of the range with the right hand. And then sometimes when you're comping, you just could play these luscious Herbie-like chords with both hands, and there's so many different opportunities, different ways to comp as you play. Is there any? I bought 2 books on comping, and the very first, very good player, good books, but the very first lesson in the book was like boogie woogie intense, which is like a lot of people can't reach a 10. So, Steve, if you ever write a book on comping, don't start with 10 boogie woogie. I want
that rules out a lot of people right
but
there.
if you were telling Steve and then Nial, if you were telling somebody who didn't play piano, like a horn player like me, and teaching him how to comp, what would you say, or what exercises would you give him, or would you tell him to listen to Bach and Beethoven, or would you tell him to put Real Pro on and just comp to it? Or one bass player offered to come over and he said, just do it. It's like learning to write and compose.
Yeah.
That's how I learned. So what would your suggestion to someone like me to learn
of course comp? You got to go to the records and listen and try to copy the greatest piano players. And some of my favorite piano players to learn comping from are Hank Jones, Wynton Kelly, Barry Harris, McCoy Tyner. I mean, there's a long list of favorites that I'm sure a lot of people would agree. If you listen to those piano players, listen to how they comp for horn players, that's what you want to try to do. And you have to think about leaving space and not playing too much, especially when you're comping for a bass solo. I hear from bass players all the time that tell me that when they play a solo, piano players always play too much. They want more space. And I think that applies to a lot of horn players as well, is to, not overplay. But I also like to try to think melodically when I'm comping and not just play a chord as a verticality, but think of chord movements, something that Barry Harris talks about quite a bit. Right. I'm sure you two are also big fans of Barry.
Please, yeah.
And, talks about moving the chord. So if you're playing C major for 1 or 2 bars, you don't just play one chord, but you play movements. For example, C major 7, D minor 7, E flat diminished 7 to E minor 7, which gives you some melody and voice leading. And you're still playing C major 7, but you're giving the impression of harmonic motion.
Beautiful. That was the best explanation I ever had. And geez, I could stop now. Nial, as far as comping and trios, and do you write your own songs, Nial, by the way? And guys, I am not just, you could also interject whenever you want. Steve, if you want to talk to Nial or vice versa, don't feel like I don't want to be a leader in that. Steam starts to come out of my head. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask each other. And Nial, about the trio thing and about the comping, what are your insights?
For the trio, of course, I would like a swinging bass player and drummer.
Good luck with that. Yeah. Just kidding. You can't throw a rock here. I mean, my bassist Paul Gill lives in the building, and my piano player Lou Renone lives in. I mean, you can't throw a rock without hitting a great musician here. But go ahead. I'm sorry, interrupted.
No, just a swinging bass player and drummer, and if we get along, that's even better. For comping, I think, the same guys that Steve mentioned, Wynton Kelly. I read, I think, in the liner notes on Kind of Blue, that Miles asked Wynton Kelly specifically to play on Freddie the Freeloader. Is that because he feels that Wynton can make it swing more than Bill Evans.
Wow. Oh yeah. I mean, Wynton was the swinginest, and all the people you mentioned are my favorite piano players. Wynton, and somebody mentioned you can comp even like Errol Gardner, fill in spaces when the soloist is resting, or interplay, etc. That was Luca Pacini. Speaking of comping, what Steve was talking about, the space thing, I have problems sometimes with vibraphone players. They don't always leave the space I require, and especially bad because the vibes continue ringing. And some guitar players, which I won't mention, of course, but actually no names come up except good ones, because I'm very fortunate to be able to go to Smalls and Mesro and to hear Peter Bernstein. And Steve, who's the young Luca Italian guitar player who plays at Mesro? What's his name?
Pasquale Grasso.
See? Did you hear that, Steve? Can you hear us, Steve?
No, I lost you for a second. What did you say?
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, and Nial.
Yeah, his name is Pasquale
Yes.
Grasso.
Oh,
Yeah, Pasquale.
Sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's the greatest.
So often I go and I see Peter, who's like one of my favorite guitar players and compers. Another one is Greg Scaff, and there's Sal Rubin, and there's Pasquale. But I'll go down to 11th Street Bar and sit in with Grant, Stewart, and Magnarelli, which is a big treat for me. And then I leave from there and I go and I sit in at Metro with Pasquale. And it's such a joy. I mean, if you have a night off in New York, it means heaven sometimes. You could just play with the best musicians in the world. And God rest him, Harry Whitaker, who I used to go every Sunday and play with Harry, who is one of the greatest compers in the world, because Harry played so percussive and he never played the same thing. I remember one night I was sitting with Harry Whitaker at Arturo's, and Barry came in, and Barry is also from Detroit. So you have Harry Whitaker and I had Barry Harris there sitting at a table, and I'm going, wow, this is really cool. Those two cats. Steve, how much were you working at what nights at Arturo's? That was a steady gig.
Yeah, Thursday was my regular night, but I would also fill in other nights for the other piano players when they took off.
Yeah, and I remember Jimmy is a waiter there, and he sings on Thursdays, and I love going in and playing with Jimmy because first of all, he's singing, and Jimmy's so outgoing. He'll go up to a table and start playing guitar and singing in Italian or singing right to the table, and they're like laughing and weeping, and it's just so beautiful. He's what we used to call in Rochester a piece of bread, such a nice cat, And Nial, what kind of gigs were happening? And you said you worked with a lot of singers in Jakarta. Did you do any trio work? Are there any strictly jazz clubs also?
Yeah, there's hardly any instrumental gigs. It's almost going to be with vocals every time. And I actually started a swing band because I also started swing dancing.
Oh, good. Oh, great. Dancing is so good. Nial, do you do any compositions yourself?
Yeah, I have my own songs. It sounds like standards. Like I just write like 32 bar form type songs.
Nothing too far out. By the way, Luca Santaniello Vitali will go to Italy together, sir. I'm ready to go. Thank you. Tomorrow. I don't care about any viruses. I'm in. Okay. So actually stay home, save lives, stay safe. I'm just kidding around. But I do wash my hands a lot, and I do want to touch my face now because I'm Ken. So it's been 3 hours since I've been outside. So it's legally cool to do that now. So let's see. I wanted to ask the back of Steve's chair something, and I forgot. And let's see, what was it? Let me see. I had a list of questions. Steve, why don't you say something while I think of a question, something smart and musical that would be helpful? Because I can't.
Wow, that's pretty wide open. So, well, I have a question for you, Richie. Can you hear me?
I can, and yes,
Yeah.
I love you, Steve.
So
You are one of my favorite piano players.
oh,
It's
that's
true.
so nice of you to say. Likewise, you're one of my favorite trumpet players.
I am
of
so
course.
thrilled to
And
be
I'm
able to
so-
hire you, by the way.
And I'm honored to play any gig with you, anytime, any place,
Well,
within reason.
my aim is to get so much work that I could not only hire my regular pianists, but be able to hire Steve and Nial and Tardo Hammer and I mean on different settings. So trio is I hire Steve and I hope to go into a recording studio with Steve someday with a small group. And I've never recorded without a saxophone player. I've recorded with Gary Bartz, Ralph Lalama, who I'm going to call shortly because he's got the virus, as Gary Smulyan did. And I want to say hello to those cats. And of course, Frank Basili. But I want to do some trio stuff and stuff with singers, which Steve is one of the best compers, both of you guys. But currently in New York, singers constantly are talking about Steve's ability to play behind them, and as a soloist, it's just marvelous. So hopefully,
Well, thank you, Richie.
We'll be able to do that. I sent. I'm going to put you on the spot, Steve. I sent Nial something I did on GarageBand, and I'm going to soon be getting Logic. And what I did was I filmed myself, and he's going to fill in all the holes. And I'm thinking of doing the same thing with you, Steve. I might send you something like Come Sunday, and or talk it over with you, and maybe you could comp and then play a solo and then play the head out, something like that. But you'd have to record it visually and audio wise, and then I'll put it in a GarageBand, record myself. We'll do split screen. But this is something I'm thinking of doing, just for fun. And I'll show Nial is going to do something original song of mine. He was nice enough to acquiesce, and I'll put that on Facebook in a week or two, and Nial gets me the material back. But I love writing. Steve, now Nial said he writes. Steve, do you do any writing yourself and composing or arranging?
Not lately, no.
And have you ever?
Yes.
Do you enjoy it?
Sure.
And what could you say about learning the dress code? Thank you, Antonio Chiaka. Nial, could you see the comments also, or is it just me? Because they're cracking
I
me up.
see them. I see them.
We can.
All right, Nial,
right.
Next time we'll have all ties or tuxedos. Okay, thank you, Antonio. But Steve, what could you say about learning how to compose and how to write that could help besides just doing it? Are there any books you bought, or like, for instance, there's a cat Chris Byers told me about, Dobson. He's got something, an approach to arranging where he worked with 2 horns and then 3 and then 4 and then 5. And then there's a book by Brookmeyer, and it's called Inside the Score for big band stuff. And I would take a whole Brookmeyer chart and put it into Sibelius to see what he did. And it's got examples of Nestico and Thad Jones, who's one of my favorite big band writers. To arrange and to write, what are your suggestions that would be helpful to people?
Well, I'm so busy trying to learn all the songs that have already been written that it has not really been a focus of mine, composition, for quite a while. So I'm probably not the best person to ask that question, but maybe Nial has some ideas on that.
Nial?
For compositions,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not very adventurous on that either. I just write like 2-5-1 type songs.
Well, I think that what Steve said is very important. Just like I used to emulate Lee Morgan and Miles and Kenny Dorham and Fats Navarro and Freddie Hubbard, and the way you learn to play, the way you learn to write is I listen to, I've done transcriptions of like Jimmy Heath's writing, for instance, Benny Golson, Joe Henderson. There's a book out, written by a piano player, Walter Bishop of Kenny Dorham compositions. And if you study that stuff, you get a really important insight to composing and stuff. Anyways, gentlemen, I know it's very early for Nial. We started at 8 in the morning, and we started late for Steve, 9 p.m. But it was enthralling for me to talk to you, two magnificent piano players and compers, and just overall great gentlemen. Next week, I hope to have trumpet players. It will be lead players and section players. I hope to have Bud Burge, Tony Catlick, and if I could get Bob Milliken to work his computer correctly, Bob will be with us too. Hopefully I'll work that out. You'd be surprised how many musicians don't own computers or even have cameras on on their computers. So I want to thank you all. Take care, comb your hair, stay home, save lives, and I'd once again like to thank my guests for being so gracious and that I cut Steve out so many times he's not screaming at me. Steve Ash, Nial Djuliarso, the world musically and otherwise is a much better place with you two here. So folks, I'd like to say goodbye to you, and I'd like to thank my guests so much.
Thank you, Richie.
And thank you, Nial, for making it, and tell Tia hi, and guys, take care. See you, Steve. See you, Nial.
Right.
And thank you all for tuning in. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.